Our gospel today comes from the Gospel of Matthew. If you like reading along in your bulletins, it'll be the third choice for today. They've given us three choices, and it'll actually be the third one. And it's a familiar story, and it goes like this. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? We observed its star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Let us pray. O Lord, may your words only be spoken and your words only heard, and we do ask this all for your love's precious sake. Amen. Kids' chapel with, oh no, there's no kids' chapel. There's Sunday school this one, that's right. So that was last night. So this is Please Be Seated, which you guys have already done, because as usual, you're way ahead of me. Well, today's gospel is the familiar story of the wise men. What's interesting is that these people who journeyed to see Jesus, the actual Greek word for these people is magi. And it's if we just wrote the letters, transliterated letters, it'd be M-A-G-I. It's the same word from which we get magic. And so the most natural translation of these people who traveled to see Jesus is that they were magicians. And yet we don't translate it that way. We translate it wise men. And history is that these were wise people, and we've remembered them for thousands of years as wise people. And so it's perhaps worth asking, what is it that made them wise? Why do we remember them as wise? What made them wise men, wise people? Because if we can identify what made them wise, then maybe we can identify what might make us wise as well. And I don't know about you, but it seems to me that growing in wisdom might not be a bad thing in 2015. From my own perspective, from my own life, gaining a little bit of wisdom in 2015, that might not hurt. It might not be a bad thing. So, if you think that perhaps you might benefit from gaining a little bit of wisdom in 2015 as well, then I invite you to think with me about what made these people wise men and what might make us wise people as well. Incidentally, this might make an interesting conversation around dinner tables, in cars, with friends, at work during the week. Why do we remember these people as wise? What made them wise? What were the things they did? And I think you'll find a much longer list than what we're going to be able to talk about today. Well, I want to suggest that first and foremost, one of the things that made them wise is simply the fact that they were willing to take a journey. Is that they were willing to move from here, at its simplest terms, they were willing to move from here to there. Here being Persia, there being Bethlehem. Now, Persia here was not a bad place. These were people who were high-ranking officials in the life of their country, and so they had great lives. They most likely lived in palaces, so they lived in opulence. They had great food. They were surrounded by beautiful settings. They were sought out by the people in their community. The people in their community would have sought them out for advice, would have come to them, so they had a lot of honor. People honored them accordingly. They had position. They were, again, high-ranking officials in the place. So for them, this is not a bad place. In fact, this is a pretty good place. But the thing that made the wise men knew is they knew that it made them wise is they knew as good as this place is, there was still a better place possible. And so they were willing to leave here to get to there. And see, most people will never do this. Most people are going to be real happy with here. And so they're never actually going to move to there. Part of the reason that so many of us are going to be so happy with here is that we live in denial. And I heard somebody say this, and it just struck me. I thought it was brilliant. The person said, we need fewer good people and more real people. And what was the point? The point is that we all want to pretend like we already live here, that we already are good people. When the truth is, we could stand improvement in a whole lot of areas of our lives. We want to believe that we're here. And if we believe that we're here, there's no need to make this journey. But if we're real and we say, actually, this is where I am, my marriage could use a little work, I really don't have many friends, my job isn't as satisfying as I'd like it to be, my faith isn't as satisfying as I'd like it to be, I'm not the person I'd really like to be, I have this issue, I have this problem. If I can be real instead of good, then I see this journey's important. But as long as I want to tell myself, hey, I'm already there, create this image, put it up on social media, have people like it, float that image out there, let it provide us with lots of externals, you see, then I'm not going to have any desire to take this journey. But if I can be real, if I can admit, I've got some substantial challenges in my life. I've got some real shortcomings. Truth be told, I've got some failures. And so it would really behoove me to move from here to there, because there is going to be better. And here's what I can tell you. I don't know many things. I really don't. But one thing I really do know is that no matter how good or bad the various areas of your life are, they can be better. They can be better. But the only way they'll be better is if we're willing to move from here to there. Take the time, make the effort, extend the energy, take the risk, be courageous, move from here to there. And then we got to be clear about where there is. Now, a journey, I want to suggest just give us a definition of a journey. A journey like the wise men made. A journey is a series of small steps made in a singular direction over time. It's a series of small steps made in a singular direction over time. So let's start with direction. A lot of people have written about this. One of the persons who has written very compellingly on this is Stephen Covey. 7 Habits of a Highly Effective Person, still on bestseller lists. Talks about the mental maps that we have in our heads. And he says if those maps are wrong, no matter how bad we want to get somewhere, we're never going to get there. We all know that's true. Then this is the direction piece of the journey, okay? This is the direction piece of the journey. So the wise men, one of the things that made them wise, they got their direction right. Right? The wise men start off here in Persia. Well, okay, start off here in Persia. And here's the east. Let's see, they came from the east, so they're heading west, I guess. So this is the east. This is what we want. And this is the west. Now, they might have intended to go to Jerusalem or Bethlehem, and they might have had the best intentions of the whole wide world, but if they'd gone the wrong direction, would have they ever got to Bethlehem? No. If their map was wrong, they never would have got there. They had to head in the right direction to go where they intended to go. And so intention doesn't determine destination. Direction is really what determines destination. And a whole lot of people never put those pieces together. It's not enough just to intend, to want. The direction has everything to do with that. And so if we look at our lives, and again, here's this idea of mental maps. If even before we look at our lives, if we look at maps, if this is Chicago and this is New York, if you look at a map and it's accurate, the road from Chicago to New York is always the same, right? Doesn't change. It's on a Jeep. But if it's as they do construction, but the basic roads they're going to be the same. And in the same way, the paths that we travel in our lives, they're going to be eminently predictable. The path to a sound financial life pretty much always looks the same. And accordingly, the path to financial ruin pretty much always looks the same. The path to to a healthy relational life, whether it's a life that's full of friends, a marriage that is just, an absolute blessing, whatever. The path to that pretty much always looks the same. And conversely, the path to relational ruin pretty much always looks the same. The road doesn't change much. The path to a vibrant spiritual life, the path to a life where a life is infused with meaning and significance and joy and purpose, higher purpose, that gives a person a reason to get up in the morning with vim and vigor, that path pretty much always looks the same. And the path to spiritual bankruptcy, to just looking inside and feeling like a hollow shell, to becoming a person that we never really wanted to be, that path pretty much looks the same as well. The path to becoming a good person, the path to becoming a pretender, a charlatan, an imposter. A lot of people have written about this. A lot of us feel like imposters. People only really knew the truth. See, that path looks the same too. Those paths are imminently predictable. And they're always clear in retrospect. You look back and you say, oh yeah, that's how I got here. See, the things we do, they look like isolated little decisions, but they're not. They put them all together, they're a path. And when we understand that, it becomes so clear how we got to where we are, either for good or for worse. And it's important to know if where we are is good, how we got here, so we can keep doing the things that are good, because it's easy to get off track. And if we're not ending up where we want to be, then we've got to say, okay, I need to change direction. If I'm heading this way, and where I want to be is this way. If I want to go from here to there, again, what we need are real people, not good people. Okay, I'm not actually getting to where I want to go. I might need to actually change direction in the areas of my life where I want to be somewhere different than where I really am. That's part of what makes a person wise. For myself, in my life, the number one direction that has given direction to everything else has been I've wanted to faithfully follow Jesus. And I know that you'd expect a priest to say that. I mean, that sounds very religious, and I always hesitate to say that because I'm afraid people will write me off when I say that. Okay, I expect him to say that. That's what a priest says. That doesn't have anything to do with my life. Everything else he said was good, but he just mentioned Jesus, so I'm just not going to pay attention to that. But it's just so true for me. Because in becoming the person that I want to be, the voice that has helped me more than any other voice, the voice that has been more trustworthy than any other voice, has been the voice of Jesus. And there are so many voices out there. There are so many voices. They're telling you who to be. They're telling you what to do. They're telling you where to go. They're trying to co-opt you. They're trying to play you. They're trying to profit from you. And Jesus just wants to love you. And he wants you to love other people too. And that's why I found the voice of Jesus such an eminently trustworthy voice, because his has been the voice that has really let me become the loving person I want to be. His has been the voice that has informed my life as a father, that has informed my life as a husband, that has informed my life as a priest, that has informed my life as a friend, that has informed my life as a person. And I've told you before, and this is true, if you had left me on my own, you probably would not want to know me. I mean, you probably would not want, and you still might not want to know me. But I'm better than I would have been if I hadn't followed the voice of Jesus. So, that's really, and I haven't always been faithful to that, and sometimes I have listened to those other voices. For me, that's always ended in disaster. And the sad part about those disasters is I'm not always the one who's paid the highest price for them. Sometimes it's been the people around me, and that's always tragic. So, what's the direction of your life? In 2015, where do you want to be? Do you know? Because if you don't know, I'll guarantee you're never going to get there. And I guarantee you the easiest thing, the most convenient thing, the most comfortable thing, the safest thing is just to stay where you are. Especially because where you are is probably pretty good. Probably pretty good. But you can be somewhere better. Well, the second thing is so it's a direction. It's a direction that occurs in a series of small steps. And so how do you make a journey? One step at a time, right? And we all know that. If for instance, I'm 100 pounds overweight, and I want to lose 100 pounds, what's the first thing I have to do? Well, the first thing I might have to do is go to the gym on Monday morning. That's a tiny little step, and yet it's a huge step, isn't it? Because if you're 100 pounds overweight and you haven't worked out for a long time, or maybe ever, And you go into the gym, and there's all these beautiful people, and they know what they're doing, and they're strong. It's very, very intimidating. It's a huge act of courage to walk into a gym when you haven't been into a gym for a long time, maybe. But if you don't take that first step, you'll never, ever get there. People look for the big things, the big solutions. It's not big, it's little. It's those small steps. It's those tiny little things. How does a person stop drinking? One drink at a time. To say, I'm not ever going to drink again in my life, too big, too scary, too abstract. You stop drinking, you say, today I'm not going to have a drink. And then tomorrow you say the same thing, and then tomorrow the same thing. How do you follow Jesus? I'm going to follow Jesus today. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but today, Lord, what would you have me do? Help me do that today. So a journey, it's just a series of small steps over and over again. And what those small steps mean is that you actually have to move. Seems obvious, doesn't it? But we live in a day and age where people have forgotten that, and where they think that talking about it is enough. Where they think that typing about it is enough. I look back on this last year. Christine was asking me, what books I'd read this year that were really good. I said, I don't know that I really read a life-changing book this year. The year before, the book I read was Tattoos on the Heart by Greg Boyle. Man, that book really rocked my world. I mean, well, holy cow. But I couldn't think of a book like that. And as I was preparing the sermon, all of a sudden, the book came to me. Because I've been quoting a lot and thinking about a lot. It's Gary Sinek's Leaders Eat Last. And you might have heard him. He gave a TED Talk. But he's written this book. The first book he wrote was Why. The second book he wrote is Leaders Eat Last. It is a fantastic book. It's one of those books that it just is so right on. And it has so much courage. Holy cow. And he talks about the fact that we've come to be a see it and get it generation. Because we live so much of our life through our phones, through our pads, or whatever they are, our screens, whatever screen it is we choose to interface with reality with, is that we've come to be a see it and get it generation. And so he says, the see it and get it generation, very courageous. The see it and get it generation has an awareness of where they are standing. They know where they are. They know where they want to go. But what they can't even understand is it's a journey, a very time-consuming journey. They seem flummoxed when they're told that things take time. They're happy to give a lot of short bursts of energy and effort to things, but commitment and grit over the long haul, giving oneself to a small number of things, but commitment and grit over the long haul are much harder. Giving a lot of oneself to a small number of things seems to have been replaced by giving a little bit of self to a whole bunch of things. He goes on and says there's so much talk about awareness, about raising the level of awareness, to driving the conversation, that we failed to notice that talk doesn't solve problems. The investment of time and energy by real human beings does. Justifying these campaigns, and he mentioned several, by saying they put pressure on others to do things only supports the argument that we seem less inclined to offer our own time, because we're trying to pressure others to do things. We're less inclined to offer our own time and energy to do what needs to be done, insisting rather that everybody else do it instead of us. See, somewhere along the line, the journey requires us to do it. We've got to take those steps. We've got to do something. We've got to move. There's got to be action. So it can't just be intention, even in the right direction. Somewhere along the line, we've got to move. If we're in financial trouble, there's going to be some things we absolutely have to do to get back on the right path and put things back where we want to be. One of those things might be taking this course that Richard Leach is going to offer. And you know that Richard, and not everybody does, Richard Leach is a person in our church who's one of the best people I've ever known with money. And his career is going to take him to Houston in a few months, and so this is going to be the last time he's going to offer this course. And frankly, even if you're good with money, I expect if you took this course, you'd benefit from it. And so, maybe what I'm saying in 2015, I'm here, I'm in pretty good financial shape, but I could be in better financial shape. I'd like to be. I'm in terrible financial shape. I'd like to fix things. I've done real well with finances, and because I've done so well, I want to make sure I keep on doing those things. There's going to be some steps I'm going to have to take, and maybe this course is going to be one of those. and I'd commend it to you. If you want to grow in your faith, there's going to be steps you have to take. You know, you can't just talk about it. I can't just talk about it. There's going to be things we have to. It's not going to happen if we don't actually do something. Well, the final thing is, and this is it's small steps in a singular direction applied over time. And you know that this is true. All of us know this is true. The person who walks the longest goes the farthest. Right? I mean, it's just simple. But think of the implications of that. The person who has been faithful in developing a spiritual life over the long haul, who has been cultivating a spiritual life for years and years and years and years, with intentionality, with focus, who has consistently made this a priority. You've met people like that. I've met people like that. And we all sense that there's something profoundly different about those people. There's a depth, there's a clarity, there's a compassion, there's something in those people that we want, that we know is absolutely essential to a life well lived. And so few people in our culture have it. Why does somebody like a Mother Teresa stand out like such a bright light? Small steps, singular direction, long haul. Why does somebody like Martin Luther King Jr. stand out like such a bright light? Small steps, singular direction, long haul. And there's just no substitute for that. But here's what happens. Here's what happens, and it's Seth Godin who writes about this, and this is brilliant. He calls this the local maxim. What happens is if you do anything for the long haul, again, paths are predictable. Paths are going to have ups and they're going to have downs. All right? So I've been here at St. Matthew's now for 14 years. Our direction has been, because I think we have been faithful in trying to be a loving place. Loving, our society, people might be at odds, they might be polarized, they might be having trouble getting along. We have people of every different perspective here, and we love each other. Right? We have a great time together. We really do. People in this area, a lot of people in this area are very selfish when push comes to shove. They put the majority of their time, energy, and resources into themselves, into their families, and don't care much about anybody else. When it comes down to, again, what we do, it's not what we say, it's not what we intend, it's what we actually do. What we actually do with our money, what we actually do with our time. But you guys are very generous. I mean, you give a lot of your money, you give a lot of your time. You do things nobody else in this area is doing. I'm so proud of you for that. And because I think we've done that, St. Matthew's, for a lot of our life, if you look at, most of the things we measure look like this. But if you do anything long enough, it starts to do this, right? I mean, if in a marriage, does a marriage go straight up? Oh, it has its ups and downs. In a friendship, does a friendship go straight up? No, friendships have up and downs. And finances, does finances go straight up? No, because there's external forces. There's other things. I mean, they might go in a singular direction, but there's going to be some ups and downs depending on interest and rates and so on and so forth. And so same thing in the life of a church. You do this long enough, you're going to have a downturn. And I don't actually know the numbers because I didn't have access to them in this last week. But my guess is that after 14 years of this, we started to see a downturn last year. We had some pockets where we did some great things, and people did some exceptional work. I'm so proud of so many people, but I think overall some of our numbers started to go down. I think probably our finances went down a little bit. I think there's some things that beat me personally. And in a lot of ways, I personally, and I don't have time to go into this now, but I can just tell you I'm pretty clear on this, I failed pretty spectacularly in 2014. Had some huge challenges, and they're still performing in 2015. But what tends to happen is when people get to this point, so you've been going up and up and up, and now all of a sudden you start to go down. When you start to go down, the temptation is to get discouraged. The temptation is to think, for me to get discouraged, is for me to make a mistake. And so what I think I want to do is, I'm down here, what I want to do is I want to go back to here, right? Let me draw this bigger, because this is what we're really getting at. This is very, very important. All right, so things are going up, right? All of a sudden they start going down. Eminently predictable. That's the way things are in life, up and down. So they start going down. I start to feel like I'm failing. I start to feel like I have a loss of confidence. I think I got to do something different. What do I think I got to do? Well, I got to go back here, right? Is that what I need to do? No, it's not, because if I go back here, what am I doing? I'm going the wrong direction, aren't I? Instead of going from here to there, I'm going back to here. And nothing's ever going to change. And I go back to the world samer. You know, the person who the dictate for their life is same to you, pal, not being anybody change anything. So I get here, what do I need to do? I need to learn. I need to persevere. I need to recommit. And then I need to push on. Because if I'll learn, if I'll persevere, if I'll recommit, if I'll draw good people around me, then we're going to move beyond the local maxim to something that we never thought was possible. But you can't turn back here. See? So it's small steps, singular direction, over the long haul. You got to stick with it for the long haul. So much more is important, so much more is possible in the long haul than if we just give up. So 2015. May you and I, may we be clear about our direction in 2015. May we be clear about the steps we need to take to move from here to there. And may we commit ourselves to being in it for the long haul, for doing what needs to be done. Not for our sake, principally. You know, this isn't just the gospel of self-actualization, but for the sake of the world, for the sake of the people around us who need us to be more than what we are, for the sake of the world around us who needs us to be more than what we are, for the sake of the God who created us to be more than what we are. Amen? Amen.
Please stand.